Hey y'all, so we're back for another episode of LRI Infinity Let's Talk on the Side. You know, I have Let's Talk where we talk to women as they tell their unapologetic stories. I'm along for the journey. We're celebrating, we're understanding that women are not monolithic and that we all have our own ways of being our perfect selves as women. And then we have Let's Talk to Men About It. We talk to men about women, their thoughts, their feelings, their observations, and of course, Let's Talk on the Side. It started as random thoughts, feelings, opinions, and emotions for me. And as I realize I'm not the best solo podcaster, or maybe I am, and I just don't like just being alone on the mic, I'm bringing in powerful women, people, men, y'all come on too, and we're going to talk about random stuff. So I'm here with Camille. I met Camille on Clubhouse. We chopped it up on IG. She's a fellow podcaster, and we're going to talk about a little bit of mental health and solo traveling today. Camille, what's up?
Hey, girl. Hey, how are y'all?
Yeah, I'm good. I don't know. How are y'all doing? I don't know. Drop it in the comments. How are y'all doing? Shout out to all my listeners around the world, and big shout out to my Houston support right here. Camille, so when we were originally talking, we were going to just talk about solo travel.
Mm-hmm.
Love solo travel. It's definitely a thing. We were just going to talk about solo travel, but then I read your paper, your form for the guests, and you said something about mental health. So I want to know more about you, where mental health falls within your lines, and then we got to go on a trip. We got to get you traveling if you've never been solo traveling. So what's going on? Tell us more about yourself.
I'll break it down like this. So one of my mentors, he does this in a great way. So from my 8 to 5, I am a academic advisor. So I serve in the college space, assisting, all students from freshman year to senior year, making sure that they graduate. Me specifically, my focus is more so on Black students, and then it extends out more to students of color and also women of color. And so that's my focus. And so right now, that's what I'm currently doing in my 8 to 5, then my 5 to 9. That's where I also serve as the podcast host for my podcast called the Intermission Podcast. And it pretty much just speaks on all things creative, Black, and millennial. And for those folks who, be just talking so bad on millennials, I just want to make sure that people are aware that there is a clear distinction between millennials and Gen Z, and that a lot of the resources that we're using today, including these mics, this streaming, Twitter, Instagram, all of that was created by millennials. So yeah, that's what I do for my 8 to 5 and then my 5 to 9. With the podcasting.
No, I love that. One, master's degree is in higher education student affairs. I took the road of student advising, FYE advising, and auditing all their schedules and being over their matriculation to second year and all that stuff. So I know what you're doing. Thank you. And I did it in an HBCU with a lot of first-gen college students. So I know what you're doing. Thank you. And then as far as podcasting, I also did some of my higher ed studies in mentoring models and generational studies. So I love talking about millennials. I love talking about me as a millennial. And I love finding boomers that are seeking millennials. And that's what I'm doing through the US space. It's a space for women of color to thrive and work together. And my target market is millennials, but it's because we attract other generations that see what we're doing. We're like the jump off. We're the jump off.
Literally.
Okay. Yeah, literally. So all of that, I know that plays in your mental health. So what's going on with that?
Oh, man. Well, mental health for me, I think it stems in different places, right? So I think like you just said, just being in that higher ed space, that's one part. But I kind of like to compartmentalize myself, to be completely honest, just because there's so many different varieties of me and what I offer in different spaces in some way. But at the end of the day, all of them kind of create this puzzle piece. It kind of creates like a big puzzle. And so in terms of mental health, I think that's one of the grounding forces that really allows me to serve in those different spaces and not lose it. And I think that as as Black women, that's something that I think has been pulled on us and strained on us for so many years, for so many centuries, that finally now, I will say for myself personally, I've seen just that growth and that evolution of people in general accepting mental health, especially people of color accepting mental health. And so when we talk about generational trauma and things like that, for me, I don't know, mental health is just one of those things that I think is definitely underrated.
I always say that trauma begins at the end of the journey. When you go back and you look and you're like, fuck, because especially as women of color, Black women, you put your head down and you work, right? People of color, you work. Hell, poor white people, you work because you're trying to make it, right? You're trying to do what you do and need what you need to get what you got to get done to generational wealth it up, right? And then you get to the end of COVID-19, and we're not at the end, but let me tell you, this is the end of a new beginning or whatever you want to call it. But then you unpack it and you're like, oh, that was traumatizing. Like on my Google, you know how the Google comes up, it's like a year ago today. I actually like didn't want to look at it because I remember, a little bit over a year ago being like, okay, I can do this. I can go in a bubble for a little while. And you come out of the bubble and you're like, wait, nothing's changed, but everything's changed. It's just freaky. So yes, so we're having, and I say we, the WOMI app, it's a directory for people of color, women of color, LGBTQ plus community. Oh, shout out, it's Pride Month here in the United States. We just started Pride Month in June. Pride 365 or 66 days, whoever, and Black 365 days, 66. But anyway, so shout out to everybody that is living their best life and able to express themselves the way they want. But we're having the Melanin Minds Mental Health Conference with the WOMI app in July on the 17th. It's going to be hybrid here in Houston and virtually. But what I really wanted to talk about and what's crazy is, so Mel owns the WOMI app and I own the US Space, and we're pairing together to do the Melanin Minds Mental Health Conference. And Mel's episode is actually the one that you listen to that got this conversation and to where it is right now, solo travel.
Yeah.
So where are you at with this?
Child.
Y'all, her face, she's like, girl, I know we were going to talk about it, but shut up.
I will say that solo travel, before this year, it was never anything. I won't say it was never. It maybe came across my mind at one point in life. But I think that in the years prior, I never had the confidence. I never had the security in myself, the amount of faith that I have to be able to like go full out and do the trip. And so attached to that, there comes this wanting and willingness to be able to defeat fear. And so just this year, literally, I celebrated my birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. Girl, so celebrated my birthday yesterday. My plans got all torn, all ripped apart last minute because of a decision that I made to no longer pursue a trip with an individual at the time. And so literally 3 days before my trip, I canceled it. I said, I'm sorry, I can't do this, and pretty much just broke that situation off. And so when that happened, I just had this thought. I mean, of course, you go through your grieving process a little bit, but then I had a moment with myself, like, you know what? Why do I have to stop my life or the things that I desire because there isn't someone there to do it with me? It also kind of has that attachment with being a woman as well, just because there's so many things that are outside of us that can cause this overwhelming of fear. Like just being a woman stepping outside of your house, you're already threatened. For me, I'm just like, okay, I can do this. Like I can go on a trip by myself. And to me, I feel like that would be the biggest thing to defeat fear, right? Just as a woman and just traveling. Of course, you have to make sure, that you have people that are checking in and things like that. I think it's like a liberating moment to be able to just mentally get to that space where you're like, I'm going to travel by myself, but to follow through with it, what I'm learning, it's an entire process. It actually takes more work than traveling with other people. And that says a lot in itself. So yeah, girl, that's where I'm at with it. Haven't planned anything yet. I've looked at a couple of places, but I'm like, okay, we might gotta wait till like next month because this planning is rough, especially with the turnaround. So
okay. Yeah, so let's talk about it, because solo travel, like mentally, when you start it's harder, right? But then you find out that when you go on that first trip and you're like, oh, I don't have to wait for nobody. I don't have to say, hey, do you want to do this? Like and your agenda can shift. So there's like an ebb and flow, right? Pluses and minuses. And I think Millie and myself and I know Mel and me talk about like weapons and being nervous and what cities to go to. So, and there are 3 things that I think me and you, for the way we look and our ages, we have to be mindful of. Like you said, a woman. My face, y'all, it just drops. Not because I don't like being a woman. I'm just fucking tired of that being a problem, right?
Right.
2 is being American. That's actually a thing. Like, we got to be mindful of where we go, because not everybody likes us, because a lot of dumbasses. And then 3, Black, right? I've been to Chicago. Chicago is my favorite solo destination to go to. Chicago has hop on, hop off buses. Their downtown scene you can walk around in. There's things to do. There's the pizza, the popcorn. It's just a real chill city. And I like going there. It has a great party scene, all that. But one thing I do remember when I started solo traveling is, just like you said, talking myself out of it. I almost did. And the way I started solo traveling was my parents were going to go on this huge Amtrak trip. And it cost like $3,000-$4,000. They ended up not going. I think there was a death in the family or something happened. And so they didn't go. They had this travel credit. I was like, shit, I'll take it. Let's go.
Right.
And so for my first solo travel trip, I went west. I went down the coast, New Mexico, went through Tucson, Arizona, where I was born. Like, these weren't like places I stopped, but we were on the train. And my parents travel, right? So I had my own little car and the food, and I had like a little food time and stuff. And I found myself a lot of the time, like, kind of tight in a bubble, because I didn't know what to do with myself. And it really became this time of like self-actualization and me realizing, oh, like, not in this, I didn't realize it, but my confidence straight up comes from me. And after I took the trip, I was like, I need to do that again, and I need to do it different. And so every time I go solo, I come out of my shell a little bit more, because I already have spidey sense, right? We already trust our gut. We already know where not to go. And if I'm the one in a group when I travel, especially with women, that is always the safe one, why wouldn't I be safe by myself, right? When I did the Amtrak trip, I also, one of my line sisters, she lives in San Francisco. So she like drove in for the night, and we hung out and went out, and then I was on my own again. So just like different places you go, and the older we get, you know somebody in every fucking city. So it's not like a surprise when you go there, but you have no obligation to anybody. So I just like it. My next thing I want to do is, because I've only traveled solo in the States, is I want to go out of states. While we're talking about it, I'm planning a solo trip to Memphis. There is a guy trying to tag along with me. I'm like, nah, like, that's not, he's like, oh, I've never been there. Okay, well, you should go. You know what I mean? Like, you should go, not with me. Like, I'm trying to figure this out on my own. But when I first looked this up, when I knew we were going to talk about it, I didn't type in Black woman. And it was a whole different group of places to travel. And I find it interesting, because even the first time I traveled to another country with one of my line sisters, it was during a travel alert in Jamaica, because women were disappearing on the beach. And as we're walking, I'm like, hey, sis, like, my dad told us not to walk on the beach at night. What's the first thing you do? Walk on the beach at night. And then I realized, as we're walking, I was, you have these epiphanies. Maybe it would have been too late if we got abducted. But I was like, oh, all the women that disappeared were white women. And in Jamaica, we are seen as queens and we are safe there. For me, that was literally one of the things, like they would even ask, who's your family here? All these things. So also another thing that we have to be mindful of is some places that are not safe for us are safe for other people, other white people. Some places that are not safe for white people are safe for us. And I think that's part of the story that's kind of left out, is that not just as many, but there are places that are safe for us just because of our skin color. And how awesome is that, right? Because that's like a statement that we don't often get to say here.
Yeah, for sure.
You're listening to LaRae Infinity Let's Talk on the Side podcast. And I'm Melissa, founder of the WOMI app, the first native directory app for women and minority-owned small businesses. From beauty brands to podcasts, sustainable goods to handmade gifts, and Black-owned to queer-owned. You'll never be short on small brands to support with the WOMI app. Download for free from Google Play or App Store.
I'm that person. I'm either, I won't say all or nothing, but I have to be honest with myself. I go to like the nearest extent. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to go out there. So for me, like solo trips, I love water. I love sand. I love sun. I love authentic food. Yes. So for me, anything that I'm trying to do is more so like, you know, down in the Bahama, Florida, that type of space. And so just to get out of a country or to do anything like that, to me, that's like my desire. Like when I want to get away, I want to get away. Like I'm gone.
Yes. Okay, so what's the plan? Where are you going?
Child.
Name it.
I don't know. I do not know. I will say, fun fact about me. So my mom, she used to be a DJ. So just growing up in the 90s era, like I was with her setting up at parties, you know, holding the crates with the whole music, putting the little mints on the table. I was like her little mini me.
Yes!
Going along. So, you know, when hip hop was at like its best era for me personally, like in the 90s, I literally was like in the mix of it all, but as a kid. So seeing hip hop through the eyes of a kid is so different. And then growing up in that era, I just have a really close attachment to hip hop, more so lyricism than, you know, these trash bars that, you know, a couple people out here rapping right now. But that's another story. However, I will say,
like, y'all, did you notice she'd be skating over shit? But it's fine. We only have like, 15, 20 minutes, but I agree.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah. I'm like, I think something that's very important to me wherever I go is going to have some connection to music so that I can just engage in like the culture, the neighborhood. I really love New York because, that is so much diversity in New York. It's so much culture in New York, just to go to Brooklyn, Harlem, Queens, like all those places, and they food be bomb.
Oh, New York. I went to New York. Dang, I travel with my line sisters a lot. Like there's 3 of them. So there's 34 of them plus me 35. But so Latoya, Asia, and Damaris, those were my road dogs. Oh, and Shan, she's my friend. But so me, Asia, and Damaris went to New York, and the food bomb. The food bomb. Then we went to Hell's Kitchen neighborhood and more food. So we had this first time I had real ramen, and then we went to a drag bar because I worked at a gay bar in Austin for like almost 10 years, and so I was like, Sable Cities, because Sable comes from that area. I was like, when I go, who should I go see? She like listed off these people, and I go, and they see the straight girls in the audience, and they were like, hey, you. And I was like, yo, Sable said hi. And she was like, bitch, what? She's like, shots. And she brought this fucking Jaeger. I burned out on Jaeger in like 2010. But when you're at a show and a drag queen gives you shots, don't be that typical straight girl that's like, what is this? I'm not, throw it back, keep it moving, and party. Like, that's
God. I'm not ready. Sis ain't ready. I'm not ready.
But yeah, we did the gardens. We did a Broadway show. I saw Book of Mormon, amazing. So if you go to New York, yeah, I mean, take somebody that is chill as fuck, and maybe that's not one you do solo like for your first.
Right.
But I mean, if you want to go solo first, go to some beach city. Go to an old people beach city if you really want to do solo.
Oh gosh, I've been looking at some black owned. I've actually been looking at some black owned bed and breakfasts. I think people completely like disregard bed and breakfasts, especially in terms of like black owned. And so what I found, there's actually one in Houston. There's actually one in Houston, and it's really beautiful. And I'm like, oh, that one looks nice. The room set up, how they, the breakfast that they have ready for you is like chicken and waffles. I'm a soul food girl, so listen, give me some chicken, some waffles. In my heart, I feel like I'm from the South. I don't feel like I need to be in the North at all. I really feel like I'm a Southern girl, and I've heard people tell me like, yo, are you from the South? And I'm like, man, I wish.
Where are you from?
I'm actually from Flint, Michigan. Yeah.
Oh well, girl, that's the South and the North. Like Flint, that's where all our people went when my family is in Detroit, Michigan, and Flint and all that area. And they did the car boom and stuff, so we have family up there. And one of the dudes I used to talk to, family up there. Then you got to hope Ancestry.com is popping. You a Southern girl, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, maybe I'm trying to get back to my roots. Shoot, like. But yeah, the bed and breakfast is for sure, I think, is something to consider. If there is anyone out there who's also in the similar boat to me, I would say definitely consider bed and breakfasts as well, just because it gives you that space to be isolated. I know for me, what I'm looking forward to is more so just that isolation and spending time with myself. I want to read, I want to journal, I want to get back into that creative space that I'm trying to get back into in terms of my own podcast and getting the vision for the next season. So I'm not really, here for the partying and doing all like the moving around things. I really just want to be in a space where I can be grounded, rooted, tap in, get that alignment that I need so that, in this next season of life, I can just, go into it with more confidence and more assurance in myself, and things that I'm trying to do.
Yes, tap in. So I will definitely say that if you come to Houston, I would love to meet you for an afternoon. We can go to the beach and do all that stuff. I'm Pfizer crew, so I'm good to go. And you bring up a really good point about bed and breakfasts. Like, I think they kind of started slipping through the cracks when, the Airbnbs and all those came about. Because often, especially overseas, when I'm doing my trip planning, I'll look at the reviews for B&Bs, and I'll say B&Bs because there's tons of different services, but I'll look at them for people that are like, oh, the host was great. They stopped in, gave us recommendations. And that's something with bed and breakfasts. That comes through because you get left alone, but you still get personal interaction. And if you don't come back, or you're gone too long, somebody's going to check on you. Y'all, if you're solo traveling, look for places that care about the people in a higher level or at an individualized level so that you know that you feel like an extended family. And also put on your tracker. Fuck it.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I'm trying to get you to set a date. So when are you going? What are you doing? Like, y'all, you see how she started me. When are you going? What are you doing?
Listen, we'll try. What is this now? We'll try by the end of this month, maybe. We'll try the end of this month.
Look, y'all, she looking over. I'm looking down at my calendar. The end of
That's
this
why I was
month.
looking at my calendar like, okay, hold on. What's this looking like? Okay, maybe the end of this month, I think for sure will be something for me.
So you got Juneteenth. We celebrate that here in Texas around the 19th. And so if you wanted to come to Houston, because Texas is where Juneteenth comes from, because we didn't get freed around here for people say 3 years, but there's actually a slaver that didn't release his slaves till he died like 2 years later. So it's really 3 to 5 to 6 years, depending on where you go. And history gets lost when it's not written. Tulsa, and all those things. So Juneteenth is celebrated because of Texas releasing of the slaves and us getting the information I'll say late, blanketed statement. But if you want to come here, everything be jumping off here around Juneteenth. Everything.
Okay, I might have to make it may be tight because, you know, just that whole thing, I think, around Juneteenth and what that symbolizes. To me, it could symbolize a lot of things, you know, freedom, liberation, and all of that. And because I think that that's in alignment with where I am, you know, mentally, emotionally, my purpose for traveling alone, you know, liberation, you know, things like that. I think I can see, you know, some alignment in it too. So I may consider Texas. I was already looking at the, you know, the bed and breakfast. So I don't know, maybe you're that confirmation. Maybe I will be in Texas next month.
Yeah, because you know how random is it how we found each other and stuff, but there's so many great things that you can do around here alone. And I'm gonna steal it from 2020, but alone together, right? Like you can go to the museums. NASA is right up the street. The beach is right up the street. And then the parks, places to meditate, you know, go to a yoga thing, because any city you're in, every time I travel alone or travel with somebody that leaves me the fuck alone, I understand myself more.
Yeah. And I think that's the goal. I think that's one of the goals that a lot of people don't understand, like in terms of what that means for someone to travel alone. It's not just, you know, forget everybody else. No one's plans worked out. I'm just going to travel by myself. I think you have to get to a space within yourself before, during, and after. There's a whole reflection process that takes time, or that's going to be happening while you're in that journey. And I think that that's something that gets missed too, the journey of just making the decision to following through with it. For me, I think this season right now, in terms of my life, is just a season of divine decision making. So, you know, we ought to be aware of the decisions that we make, why we make them, and the impact of them. And so, you know, once again, anybody that's considering traveling alone, I want to applaud them, because I recognize just how much confidence and stuff that takes. Yeah, if anybody out there, thank you. You did it. Look, I gotta tell myself that I'm speaking into myself as I'm speaking to the other people.
You can't be scared to live, right? Like there's a difference between being cautious and wanting to not misstep so you have more trauma brought on by more trauma. But you got to go out there and do things masked, you know, vaccinated, whatever it is, like make what you got to get done. So Camille, I will be holding you to it. You're going to be like, oh, this bitch was serious when she said, like, y'all don't understand. Once you are LRI, LT family, like once you're part of the Let's Talk family, I check up on you. You need something, I'm here for you. If you come to Houston, when you come to Houston, reach out to me. I'll make sure you have my number and everything. Our conversations aren't done. I want to get on here at another point and chop it up with you about higher ed and our antiquated systems and why we don't need them, but we need them so much, and all of those things. Where can we find your podcast? How can we support you?
My podcast, the Intermission Podcast, you can listen to that on different streaming platforms. So season 1 is on Apple Podcasts, and it's also on Spotify. However, season 2 is only available on Spotify. I've implemented music into the actual segments.
I love that. And, you know, season 3 is going to come soon, so I can't wait to hear and listen and to catch up a little bit on what you're doing in your podcast world. Please reach out to me, y'all. And you know how this goes as you're moving through the world, as you're doing things, as you're understanding who you are as a human, as you decide to solo travel like me and Camille and I. Tell your story, be your own brand, live your truth, and stand in your moment. All right, y'all. This is LaGina. I'm LaGina. I'm the host of LRI Infinity Let's Talk podcast, and you just heard me and Camille talk on the side. All right, y'all. Thanks. Bye.